Good morning, everybody. Sorry about the delay here. Apparently, my phone wasn't plugged in, so I'd been staring at it waiting for it to charge, and, well, unsurprisingly, I decided not to charge. Just give me just 1 minute while I get this thing going. Oh no, I'm missing chat. I'm a ghost. It's crazy. Can you imagine me being a ghost? Well, here I am, on ghostin'. Such a ghost boy. Mm-hmm. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. How is everybody doing today? I hope you're doing well. There we go. I know, jump scare. So, first off, let's get some thank you, Keeper, for getting first. Thank you, Eurofrosty, for getting second. I saw you lurking. And thank you, Lilypad, for getting third. We're gonna let you start stealing first, by the way, chat. And good morning, Snowy Owl. Lovely to see you. Good morning, Lynx the Pug and Astral Rose Nova. Good morning, Echo Infernal. Morning, Keeper and Lily and Keeper again. Good morning, Teddy Bear. Good morning, Ocean. I hope you're doing well. It's me, I'm the spider. I'm sorry for you to find out this way. But yes, so chat, we have some options today. I think I might do some ASMR Minecraft this morning because I kind of feel like building and playing hardcore. But we also have the option of playing Cultist Simulator, though there's going to be a lot of motions and movements. It might not be as chill. And we can still do Citizen Sleeper. Would I survive an hardcore? Of course I would. So, chat, are you preferring Minecraft or Citizen Sleeper today? We could also do Sunless Sea. There's a few options here. It's fine. You do what you do. I'm also not on the server much. Sunless Sea is the third game. It's a game about being under the water in a giant, giant ocean. Well, not a giant ocean, but a giant sea beneath the world. Yes. Good morning, Quidify. And this is my daily reminder to mute the browser source. Sorry, it's not under the water. It's on top of the water, but it's under the earth. It is Sunless Sea. Yes. So it's your choice. Do we want to be a little boat in a sunless sea? Do we want to be Minecraft? Or do we want to be Citizen Sleeper? Minecraft? Minecraft sounds like it could be fun. God. It's been a little bit. It's been a little bit. Mm-hmm. Oh. Apparently the game is updating chat. Sun the Sea. We'll do that one tomorrow. Mm-hmm. A reminder that their vision, spiders, is significantly worse than yours or I. It most likely cannot see you. They're very nearsighted. Mm. All right, enjoy your learn. All right, chat, we're going to create a new hardcore world. Who wants to be the name of this one? I guess we need to redo keepers, don't we? Keeper of Fate. And we also need to rearrange some things on the screen here. And it will make Minecraft big. And there we go. Oh, I remember this. We have to move chat, don't we? Why do you want me to purr all the time? Why is this a new thing for you, Keeper? But yes, there you go. Good morning, Vanya. Lovely to see you. Alright, let's get started. Good morning, Josiah. And good morning, Anya. We've only just gotten started, so you're still fine. Alright, Keeper, you've cursed me to the desert. Don't lick my son. My son doesn't want to be licked. I'm stuck in my room. I lost all motivation to clean my room. You got this. I believe in you. Oh, what a crazy. Stop licking my son. Chat, we found one tree. I've decided we're making this a challenge. We're gonna see how long I can live on that island. Gene, why do you impose stupid challenges to yourself? Why do I do anything, Chad? And it's gonna be funny because we're gonna see those trees in the distance, but I can't go over there. We'll find cherry blossoms. We'll find them. I just need to build out from my island. Hmm. Chad, I think you might stink today. It's crazy. Good morning, Shay. Where is it? I really wanted to pop in and say good morning to you and everybody. Pulled an all-nighter 2 days in a row, so I'm going to take a short cat nap. You sleep well, okay? Get some sleep, Nova. Nah, somebody stinks in chat. Smelly. Don't lie. You know who you are. Fish. Shay. 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 You're such a good little bunny. Such a good bunny. I'm going to eat Nemo. Chat, is the music a good volume? Hello, Eridasa. How you doing, Eridasa? Good. Music and game are good. Glad to hear. Alright, chat, and I decide different. We live on this island. Welcome home, chat. Even though that place looks amazing, we live on this goofy little island. Well, we found the first issue. Nova, you sweet thing. You're so cute, so adorable, and you're just a lovely, lovely person. You deserve to be well rested. You deserve to get all the sleep you can possibly get. So please make sure you're taking care of yourself. Because you need to care about yourself even slightly as much as I care about you. Okay? I hope you have a fantastic sleep. And you will do incredible things. You'll do so very, very well. Just keep going. Keep growing. And you'll get all you deserve, I promise. So good night, lovely, lovely, lovely Nova. Be the greatest person I know you can be, okay? Mwah. Good morning, Kinkies. How you doing? Mm-hmm. Good. As you should. Give me a sapling, please. Sleepy violence. I feel that. Did you have fun, Keeper? Was it a fun game for you? That should be the last one, shouldn't it? There's what we're looking for. What do you mean today? It's 3:56. How long have you been up? Mm-hmm. Oh. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm glad it sounds like you had fun. Mm. EP maxed. Mm. There we go. Let's go find us some rocks. We'll build our little mine shaft right here. I'm actually doing very well today. I slept good, except for a mild panic attack. I'm doing pretty well. I'm fine. They happen time to time. Oh, and look at that. Look at that, chat. Already we're getting coal. We can start burning down the environment, chat. Mm. I don't know if that'll help. But you can try, Vanya. Today will be a good day. I'll actually get some work done. I went to sleep too early last night to really get the things done that I wanted. Good morning, Patrick. I'm doing very well. How are you doing? Hmm. Oh, little shrimpies. Love them little shrimpies. It's shrimple to see how important those shrimps are to me. Where did all of these... Oh, there's more. Oh, I'm glad to hear. Glad to hear that, Anya. We'll always be here to give you something nice to wake up to. We must get ready to fight through the night. Yes, Vanya, I would still love you if you were a shrimp. I'd only eat you a little bit, Vanya, if you were a shrimp. It's okay. Only a little munch. Only a little eat. A small amount of eating is okay. What's it called? Prawns. Interesting. I thought prawns were something different. But I don't know too much about prawns. Chat, I can't cook the tropical fish. We'll just have to eat it raw. It's fine. Eating Nemo did not help me much. I regret killing Nemo, chat. Raw. No. Anya, you should get some sleep. Close your eyes. Rest. No problem with sleeping early. What is that second emote? Wild. Good morning, Ping. They haven't added copper golems yet, have they? Understandable. Making my way downtown, walking fast. Seasons pass, but I'm homebound. I'm not a puppy. I am a human. But I always do enjoy hunks. And down we go. Down, down, down. The goal chat is to find spiders so I can make a bed. Picked shaped candles taste good. What do you mean shaped candles taste good? You're not eating candles, are you? Oh, I still need to add the head pads. When are you going to show me how to add head pads, Kiefer? Why are you eating candles, Nikio? Keeper's gatekeeping. Have you tried eating pickles? Water cave. Oh no. This is not what I wanted. Oh, I feel like mix it up was a pain, and that's why I didn't like using it. Oh no, more water. What do you mean? How are you saying what is a pickle when you ate a pickle tasting thing? Yes. Soaked in vinegar. Oh no, chat. It's monster fighting time. We're still surviving. But you're eating the candle. Why are you eating the candle? Um, I understand. Insane. We're in a predicament, chat. We're in a little bit of a bind here. Mm. If you're EP, just be not EP. You know what? Facts. Easy facts. Madia's trying to actively kill me, chat. Can you believe it? Insane. Bonnie just wants me dead. Yeah, only little. Only little munch. A normal amount of munch, not too much. Oh, good morning, Pomo. I hope you're doing okay. Good morning, Gibbets. How are you doing today? I look redstone. I wonder if I'll find iron soon. Redstone's red. Yes. I also hope you get better soon, Palmo. But I care slightly more. Oh. Well, hopefully this can be a good space for you to be less grumpy. We're just Minecrafting this morning. It is a competition and I'm winning. Only a loser would think it's not a competition. Keeper. Minecrafted this game, you build and you mine and you craft. Hi, Eli. True. I have a meaty head. Hmm. Never, I've never been mean once in my entire life. If I was mean, it was because it was deserved. I didn't say I'd eat you, I'd say I'd munch a little bit on you. Just a little snack, a little bite, a little. And a little munch is okay. Thank you for the hug, Anya. Even if you were trying to give it to Vanya, I got in the way. I apologize, you can only be eaten once. Have a good day, Palma. Mwah, you be good. Thank you for the follow, Kiki. How you doing, Kiki? Ooh. Ooh, underground lake. Oh, I love this. Look at this with the little glowy boys. There it is. Hmm. Do not eat my hair. I need my hair. Hmm. I have an idea. Hmm. I like this place. Maybe we'll live in the underground lake. Kind of pretty. Don't eat me. Do not eat me. Not allowed. Why do people want to eat me? Vanya's right there, and they are a shrimp. That's okay. It's okay to eat, Vanya. You can eat them a little bit. Just a little. Good morning. Sorry, too late. I've already eaten your legs. You can't get to the moon. You have no legs. Such a good girl. This is my current voice, and my southern voice is a southern accent that I do. Mwah. When you were a kid, what silly thing did you believe? I used to believe toys would automatically develop the same personality I had, just to be my favorites. I had a lot of beliefs about scary things, like I believed in Bloody Mary and stuff. And so I was afraid to look at mirrors in the dark. How much protein if we eat you? Zero. I eat no protein. I have no flesh. I am only bones. Big bones. I am Sans Undertale chat. Sorry I had to find out this way. I am Mr. Sans of Undertale. Sorry I had to find out this way, chat. We live down here now, chat. I will never leave this cave. Oh my god, it's beautiful. This is so cool. We could grow trees down there. Trees could very validly grow down there. Next to the lava. What are you talking about, my Milky Bone? Thank you for the follow, Pink Birdie. How you doing today? I did not almost throw myself to my death, chat. I found Diamond. But how you doing today, Pink Birdie? Pintas are cool. Hmm. Grab me a snack while you're out there, please. I'd like a snack. I can't eat Diamond, unfortunately. Maybe one day. Thank you for following, Carmio Rain. I like your name. Seems very, very fun. Alright, chat, we might actually survive now. I'm shiny now. Yes, please show me them woof woof. Show me them woof woof bark bark woof bzz bark bark. What? What does this mean? Keeper, behave yourself. Keep that thing away. Mm-hmm. So we're muzzling Keeper first. If you have things to do, go do some things, Eli. How do you muzzle a cat? The same way you muzzle a dog? What do you mean? Very carefully. I mean, to be fair, you usually don't need to muzzle a cat. Enjoy your bus ride. That's what we're looking for. Nice. Into the great unknown we go. Into the thick of it. Into the thick of it. Alright, here's the plan, chat. We're gonna have to see if I can grow a tree down here. If I can, we're golden. If not, hopefully that'll work. Golden like Persona. This is tragic. Alexa, play Despacio. Yeah, so adding that to banned terms list. Kidding, I'm kidding. It's on my list of one days. That was not fair. That was not fair. That wasn't fair. It was so pretty too. Hmm. Well, Keeper, there goes your world. Who's next? Sure, you can totally say Japanese. I won't understand it, but that's okay. I am just good morning. Whose world is next? I don't know how to look at scenes. Thank you for the lurk, Chelsea. Mwah. There you go. No, here's a mine shaft. That would have been cool. Should have looked for a mine shaft. I love the random pathway until you see me get lucky. That's where he died, chap. Forever dead, right here. Echo, you can be the new world. Good morning, Moreau. How are you doing? There we go. You're even the seed now. This is what the Echo Infernal world looks like, chat. We start next to sheeps. Good start, good start. Thank you for your seed, Echo Infernal. What time is it for you, Moreau? You didn't stay up too late, did you? I think your seed will be nice. No, thank you for the hugs, Amdis. Thank you for the lurks. You almost live near each other then. Cave, 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 cave. Tunnel. Secret tunnel. Secret tunnel. Secret tunnel. Moreau, how are those JOB applications going? Have you been doing well with them? Sorry, job applications. I'm not sure if people understood what I was saying. I had to translate real quick. Nice. If you need help with your resume, I'm working on achievements, don't you worry. I'll get to torches eventually. This one we're gonna beat the world. anyways. Work's not letting you work. I'm sorry to hear that. Should be illegal. If they expect to keep you on, they should be legally required to give you work. I would suggest killing the spider if it's causing you that much issue. Cave, 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 cave. Chat, we cave divers. Oh no. It's a dead end, chat. Wait, no way. Did I just enter the cave of death? I almost made a cave diving mistake, chat. That's insane. I almost made a cave diving mistake. That was like every cave diving accident you hear about. Amazing, amazing. Oh wow. Claustrophobic, isn't it? Wow. No, well, thank you, Anya. I appreciate it. Well, you got this, Moreau. Do it. I believe in you. You can do it. I'm good except for my needing to yawn this morning. I'm so tired. My one flaw is being eepy. You should order some groceries. Get yourself some groceries. Groceries are good for you. You need groceries. Don't die. Not allowed. Illegal crime. Good morning, Moss Dwarf. How you doing? We found Keeper. Chat, we found Keeper. It's time to go chop down Keeper, chat. Hugs. Mwah. I'm sorry, I'm so tired, y'all. I keep yawning. I can't stop. Thank you, Holly Wolfie. Mwah. Good morning, good morning, good morning, Holly Wolfie. How you doing? Have you have a relaxing time here? We found a saddle. It is kind of nice. I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Good. Get yourself some food in you. Hmm. I'm coming to rob you. Give me your stuff. Thank you. I love these. Exactly. I do that all the time. I'll grocery shop all hungry, and then I'll have like a $400 food bill. I'll be like, what am I going to do with all this food? And then a lot of it goes bad, and I'm like, that's just such a waste. Be careful of overspending at the grocery store. Shit. Mm. I believe in you, Lynx. You got this. Mine. Happy 50-day streak. Oh, actually, today's 51. I forgot to change the date. We've been streaming since the 7th of July. But you're good. That would be nice. Oh, what a cute house. What a cute house. Since when do they have little cute windows like that? I love that. But I appreciate it nonetheless, Mosdorf. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Why, Lynx? Oh, you got this, Lynx. It'll be okay, I promise. Shall we have a problem? I need iron. Chad, I need iron. I need the iron, chat. I'll build him again later. I just need his iron. Give me your iron. Anyways. Oh, I already had some iron. Ah, that's fine. No, I need wood. Let's get wood, chat. Nobody tell Keeper, okay? I need to go get some wood. Let's get rid of the evidence. You got this. I believe in you. Keeper's not here. Don't don't tell Keeper. Don't you dare. Don't you dare tell Keeper. I did not. Nothing happened. It's fine. Oh, it's cherry. This isn't cherry blossom. It's just cherry. Proof it's okay. See? Why are you pushing me? Nice. I'm proud of you, Anya. Keep doing them. Mm. Chat, we might finish off with Citizen Sleeper. What do you all think? That's fine. I'll starve a little bit. A little starvation is fine. God, I don't want to fall asleep yet. And this game is putting me to sleep very, very quickly. No, I'll starve. It's okay. Just a little starving is fine. No, it's fine. I'm okay. I don't need food. Food's bad for you. No. I'ma just let his hunger go down. All the way down. So it's no more. Mm. Watch the meat cook, chat. And now we're gonna just get rid of the meat. We're just gonna throw it away. I'll eat, don't you worry. I look to meat. That's the meat hole. That's where the meat goes. I'm sorry, Jay. I gotta fix the meat hole. That's my meat hole. Chat, you gotta let me fill up my meat hole. It's okay, chat. I can fill up my meat hole and then I'll eat meat. Once the meat hole's full of meat, then we can be good. Oh, hey, look, horse. Should ride the horse. Oh, I didn't mean to hit you. Come back. Let me ride you. Nonce. Never stopping. I need an apple. No, I don't. Hunts. 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 We're doing a chat. Hunts. Chat closed my eyes and I almost fell asleep. That's great. There's so many villagers, chat. There's only almost too many villagers. Be shame if something happened to them all. Can you imagine? Hey, look, apples. Chat, I could eat an apple. Chat, should I eat an apple? What do you think? Where's my horse? Where's my horse? Come back. Apple. Eat my apple. Apple hole? Apple hole. Apple hole. You're right. You're so right. Let's go get some stones so I can make an apple hole. Oh. Ah, 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 ah. Should I eat this apple? Yummy. Oh. Yum, yum. Oh. Yum, yum, yum. No. Yum, yum, yum. No. It just won't let me finish eating it, Jet. I don't know what's going on. I'll try the meat. It's not doing anything, Jet. I don't get it. Oh, I ate one. That's enough food. And sleep time. Oh, it's still there. Food is now safe. Chat, we need to let it ferment. That's what's happening here. There's my fermented food storage. Alright, eventually we'll come back for that, and it'll be delicious delicacy in Norway. There, I'm full now. I don't need any more food ever again. It's time to make the meat pit. I'm too tired for this game, chat. Do you want just to hang out for a little while? Here, we're just gonna hang out for a bit. Come on. There it is. So, chat, what are your plans for today? Do you have any plans? Anything that you're planning on doing? Still working on drawing. Nice. What are you drawing, Jay? Something fun, I hope. Oh. Sabotage the spider back. Oh, I'm so excited. I get to hear my voice in a video game for the first time. You should. You should definitely go work out. Maybe I'll work out this afternoon. Chat, when I get home from work, after I make dinner, I might work out a bit. Delivery driving. That sounds fun. Oh, I love to cook. Yesterday I made a salmon fish bowl, or salmon rice bowl. It had edamame, cucumbers, salmon, rice, as well as a glaze. It was very, very tasty. No, do that. I need more money, Chan. We need so much money. Crazy how much money we need now. Let's see what we can do. Love. Do we risk it? Do we risk this? No, it's not worth it. I think we try to do a little hacking. Nice. This game is so cool. We should have played more of this today. I just wanted to do something a little bit different, you know? But sometimes, though, what's best is the classics. Hi, good morning, good morning, good morning, PKSMR. Thank you so much for the raid. How are you doing today? Thank you for the follow, Real Sarah Kitsune. My name's LuckyJene. I'm a gambler, a writer, and a flirt. We're doing some relaxing gaming this morning. Good morning, Elixir. How was your stream? Oh. Hi. Let me give you a follow back so I can check it out. Oh, someone won. Congratulations. The lag killed you. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. What were you streaming? Here, I'm gonna take a look real quick to see what you are streaming. ASMR? 3 days ago. I don't think that one's right. Good morning, Missy. You love my avatar and my voice. Well, thank you. There's also Southern Redeem if you want to hear me do Southern. Oh, clever. Very, very clever. Morning, Mr. Deep Voice. Morning. Let's see. We're gonna try to clean up the aviary. Clear overgrowth. Once a corporate garden for impressing guests with gene-tweaking birds. Now this chamber is a mess of overgrowth. You can change that. There we go. Cut away choked vines, stop the rot. This place could be turned back into a garden of sorts. The layers of growth are overwhelming, and the stench of rot distressing. You do what you can for now. What are you confused about? Well, Pink. It's Pink, right? Or am I mispronouncing your name? And what are you confused by, John? Oh, this is gonna take forever. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's gonna be so many cycles. May have to find a better way of doing that. Alright, Jay, I'll see you soon. Oh, John. You can like my voice and not want to have sex with me. Thank you for the subscription. I really, really appreciate it. Oh, thank you for the gift. I mean, now, don't get me wrong, if that is what you're thinking. I'm not one to stop. Oh, fine. I'll behave myself this morning, Vanya. Can't believe you. Keeping me on a short leash. Evelyn. Oh. Well, good morning, Evelyn. That's a lovely name. Hmm. More deeper. Alright. Now we gotta do them southern voices. Let's see if we can keep this up. Be nice and relaxed. There we go. Yadagon agent. Some gang enforcer implanted a chirping out comm signal. Time to see what they're talking about. And we got the data. Thank you so much for the follow, Yumi. Hope you enjoy your time here. At Matthew McConaughey. Alright. Another cycle comes to end. Welcome back, Jay. Did you miss me? No, you love my southern accent. I really appreciate it. I also do a little voice acting. You'll soon hear me in a video game if you like real-time strategy games. We'll be talking about that this afternoon. Oh, Nikio, I see what you mean. Nikio, you're such a good little starfire. Thank you so much for the redeem. Thank you. I thought the cabbage really ties it all together. 4 cycles have been said, and here you are, right on time, with no sign of them. You wait a while in the apartment, the dread descending as the cycle spins onward. They should be here. Check the terminal. You check and double the terminal for messages or recordings. Nothing. Just the pale glow, the silence. Check the door. You pace back and forth around the apartment. The rumbling of the station suddenly so present and loud. You go to the door and open it to an empty corridor. And close it again. You try to settle down, to wait. You sit on a bunk and stare out at the tiny room. Where the hell are they? Oh, Moreau. Thank you so much for that redeem. A knock at the door. And thank you for the subscription. Really do appreciate it. Enjoy your day at work, Gibbets. Have a lovely one. And don't forget, we'll be back this evening. 2 streams every day. Open the door. A figure stands in the door immediately, and you know it's not Sabine. They're taller, sharper, and something in the face glints in the half-light. A dark shape, like a stub of baton hanging loosely from a hand. Our local sleeper. Good to finally meet you. She steps into the apartment, glancing around with sharp eyes. What, may I ask, are you doing here? She fixes you with a steady, unwavering stare. Waiting for a friend. Of course, a mutual friend of ours, the gun doctor. Oh, you got your own little birdie. Look at him. Oh, he's cute. I love that little birdie. He's adorable. Is that your birdie? Or is that just a random birdie? Oh, I love them. We set them up here, you know. This place is one of ours. She picks up a glass in the dispenser and inspects it. People always seem to forget who put them where they are. She glances at you. And I suppose you're here to help? Something like that. Good, good. She puts the glass down and turns to face you. Love to meet helpers. We need so many, but can find so few with the right skills. What kind of bird is she? She spins the baton in her fingers by her side, her eyes not leaving yours. We have a problem, you and I. It seems like our friend has disappeared, left without even saying goodbye, which means they are a little in trouble right now. But it's the kind of trouble that you need to help for. So I thought I'd come down here, and I'd take a look at their little hidey hole, and here you are, the help. She looks through the detritus. No, I don't even know what that word is on the side. And Southern voice is up, back to normal voice. Really? John, how'd you like working in insurance? I hear it's very mentally taxing. And what help? A sleeper no less, which I have to admit is a little surprising. It suggests to me that our friend hasn't been very honest with you either. What do you mean? How'd I do what? What's up, Jay? Well, I'm sorry to report that before we got them set up here, Sabine was working for your owners. She pauses. S and ARP. You blink hard at the news, unsure how to take it. Rabbi looks away, waiting for a response. Prove it. Ooh. John, that sounds awful. I'm glad you got out of the business. Sir Kitsune, that's so cute. Oh, I can do a lot more voices very easily. Happily, she crosses to the next room. You follow her silently. She sits at the terminal and touches her baton to one of the access ports. A spark. The terminal screen skips encrypted folders, emptying themselves before your eyes. In the Flickr files, you see SNARP letterheads and code forms, reports laden with medical data, marked with corporate logo like a sigil of some cult. Rabias steps away from the terminal. Look all you want. Some of your files may even be here. Nice. I like it. It's like an ultra chore. Oh, by the way, if you need to raid and run, please feel free to do so. I forgot to say that. Just make sure you take care of yourself. And if you want to hang out here, please feel free to do that as well. Lovely, lovely to see you. Sorry, I got excited seeing new faces. The volume of documents is overwhelming, but they seem to be mostly reports on early emulation tests. Surveys with sleeper candidates, reams and reams of usage data. Sabine was an SNARP employee. Why did they help you? Rabia reaches over and places a vial of stabilizers on the desk. Breaking her concentration, it simmers in the screen light, its viscous clear liquid crystalline within the glass. We will, of course, keep up the supply. We're more than able to dispense important medicines, even without the doctor. You hold it between your fingers, and for a tiny moment, you have this urge to crush the object for the power it has over you. I'll ask Toshiro to make those a little cheaper for you. How are we running the surgery now? Rabia closes up the briefcase lab and holds it at her side. We have to retrieve our asset, of course, but I'm sure you understand. Thank you for the follow, John. Rabia turns on her way out. There's no reason for us to be enemy, Sleeper. Come see me. I keep an office nearby. We have good work to do, you and I. Meet me there in a few cycles. She slips out silently into the corridor. You look around the apartment and feel the fear drain out of your body to reveal the tiredness beneath. Interesting. Hey, upgrade point. Okay. Where do we want to put it? Efficient extraction. Chance to gain random scrap item on engineering activities. Thrill Seeker. Chance to gain energy after any engage action. I kind of want to just increase Endure. Because it's been a pain not being able to do the Endure missions at all. A Shui emote. Oh. Come here. I forgot to do this kiss redeem for you. Mwah. 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 Thank you for the kiss redeem. Okay. Let's see if we can do this one. Good morning, Hoshi. Thank you so much for the raid. I will. Can we get a shout out for Hoshi? Hi. I don't know if my mods are currently here. They might have also fallen asleep. I misspelled your name. Oh, she. There we go. Hi, Hoshi. How you doing? How was your stream? Did you have a good one? Oh, we're so close to getting that one finished. How's our data doing? Oof. I'm getting a little risky here. Oh, Jay. You're such a bad girl. If you call Hoshi a good boy, he will melt. Really? Hoshi? Good boy, Hoshi. Oh, I know how that works. I hate when that happens. Hoshi were evil. I don't believe that. I don't think Hoshi could be evil. Hoshi seems too lovely to be evil. Hoshi disowned his kids. Okay, maybe small amounts of evil, but a little evil is okay. A little evil's fine. Oh, that's cute. You retired as their father. I didn't realize that was an option you're allowed to do. I should have known. Alright, we need 2 of these data ports. Ah, and we have nothing to get it with. Well, it sounds like you all had a lot of fun. I'm glad it went well for you. Thank you. Thank you for the follows, Bottoms. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you for the follow back. I really appreciate it. Apparently, you can just stop being a father. Have you tried that, chat? Yay. Cut away the choking vines, stop the rot. This place could be turned back into a garden of sorts. Did we do it? The rich growth of the aviary has created a rich medium into which you can place spores from the groves. They'll go well here. Okay, now where do I find spores? I refuse to be a father. You can't make me. The old growth of the aviary has created a rich medium into which you can place spores from the groves. They'll grow well here. You extract the spores from the sample, print, and mix with water, then inject them into prepared mulch. It is precise work. I have done spicy audios in the past, specifically for commissions. Alright, chat, I need to take a minute here real quick. I'll be right back. I'm gonna grab some water. So we're gonna take a quick little 2-minute break, alright? Give me 2 minutes so I can go get some water. Then we'll be ready, alright? 1 sec. And we're back. Hopefully you didn't miss me too much. Thank you for the follow, Cozy German. Guten Morgen, wie geht's? You need to hear those spicy audios. I mean, there's some on the NSFW/ASMR Twitter, but a lot of them will end up being locked behind Patreon. Hi, Calypsy, how you doing this morning? Angel. embarrassed me, chat. Oh, 1 second. I need to connect my work laptop. Since we've had so many rays today, I want to go a little bit longer than normal. So I do have my computer behind me that I will connect up. That way I can, stay for maybe an extra half an hour. Na, ich spreche nur ein bisschen Deutsch, aber mein Deutsch ist nicht so gut. Meine Mutter ist Deutsch und mein Vater ist Amerikanischer. So, ich habe ein bisschen Deutsch gelernt. Aber ich habe so viel vergessen. Good night, Moxie. Sleep well. Might talk you some spicy pickup lines. Depends on how spicy, but you can definitely try. As you walked into the tambour, you quickly spot Fang arguing with Jenna. We'll keep our distance at first. Doesn't look good. Fang seems to be explaining something, but Jenna's having none of it. She points to the door, and Fang walks away, catching her eyes as he turns. Could have done with you getting here a minute or so ago. He glances back at Jenna. Well, either way, it looks like I'm fired. Good news is that it doesn't look like I need the job anyway. He takes out a slate, pulsing with pale light. So... Really? Well... A cozy German. I guess you're just lucky today. The weather up there must be nice. Wanna come down here and ruin me? He takes out a slate, pulsing with pale light. Now let's take a look at what you're really here for. The slate, thank you for the follow, Shakarl. How you doing? Unless I'm mispronouncing your name, I do apologize. The slate is a whirring mess of code streams coming directly from the river worms as they dig through the agent's data, spin it into threads for the slate to pick up. Anything good? You'll do better this time, Cozy. They switch the follow, Fallen Royal. Fang scrolls the display with a finger. A lot of junk. A lot of dull as hell message threads. A lot of tedious data catches. But... Fang's eyes flash. Definitely some good stuff. He stops the screen scrolling on an entry and expands it. Check this out. Fang shows you the screen. You see a bold corporate logo, not Solemn Himes, and a word below. Conway, Fang says. He's working with Conway? Conway Extractions, right? I can't believe Hank is trying to tease me with Gene of what they said. Fang nods. He's been speaking with them, personally. Got a whole chain of messages here, but it's mostly encrypted or redacted. He rubs his head. Damn it, this is juicy, but we can't nail him with it. Pneumonultramicroscopic silicic covolcanoconiosis? Well, damn, Sophie. All right, Sophie. Behave yourself. He scrolls some more. Wait, Wait, what's this? A wasteland reclamation facility? Right here on the eye? He glances at you. What's the best place to tuck? What's the best What's the this place is tucked into the wastes? The wastes? Welcome back, Eli. How you doing? The section of the eye Erlen couldn't reclaim was too damaged, too cut off. Back before the collapse, people would have got there by going down the connected spoke from the hub. That spoke's broken now, so the only way there is the long way, round the rim, past the greenway. He shows you on his slate. Fang looks away, thinking, Conway have been making moves on the system since the collapse. Heard they took over one of Solam's old belt colonies a while ago, moved everyone out and reclaimed the whole rock. I work with Harden. Access, old connection, not sure. Fang looks back at the screen, but if Harden is involved, then we need to check it out, simple as. This is Citizen Sleeper. Thank you for the follow, Bunny Yukina. How you doing? We have another bunny. This bunny should just make a special section for collecting all the bunnies. Hoshi, would you rather I hit on you? Come here, Hoshi. You can come sit on my lap and watch the stream from here. Fang stares out in the middle distance. We have to get to the facility. The answer to whatever Harden has been prepping, been planning, has to be there. And we are going to catch him in the act. Alright, 1 second while I get my work computer ready, chat. Take a split second. Entertain yourselves for about 5 seconds. On her back. Sophie trying to steal our man. I was type welcome home. Bonnie, thank you for welcoming me home. So glad to be back home with you. Give me my 5, maybe 6 cycles. Then I'll see you on the greenway. I seem to remember there was some old service stocks on the outer shell up by the Haifa building. By the way, exclamation point Discord does allow you to join the Discord server. It is an 18+ space, as I do post all my audios there when I do record them, so it does have ID verification. I seem to remember there's some old service stocks in the outer shell up by the Haifa building. Should be a good place to meet. Fang squeezes your shoulder. Thanks again, Sleeper, for sticking with this. I haven't forgotten about the tracker of yours either, but I'm going to need to be back in my bay to pull a solution together. He turns the slate around to face you, showing a massive scrolling code. I've been working on a fix in my brakes. He winks. Fang grins. See you soon, Sleeper. And he walks out the door of the tambour without looking back. Yay, another upgrade point. If we can just get up to here, we should be fine. I need 1 more upgrade point. It's true, I am shared by everyone. There's plenty of me to go around. I hope you get brought enough sponge cake for everybody. I want some. Okay, let's see. half an inch. Yeah, gun. Keynote. Oh, come on, we need one more half an edge agent. Yes, there it is. That's what we need. Okay, let's see what we can get. We'll throw a 3 on here. Ah, oh, nothing good. Why are you biting my arm? So violent. Well, I might as well get one of these. It's time. No hunter this time. Interesting. I wonder where the hunter went. Alright, we gotta figure out a way to make money, chat. I think I've messed up. I've spent too much time relying on this one thing and it hasn't worked yet. I was so certain it was gonna work. Maybe that'll help me out. As you approach an address, Rabia gives you a heavy hand. Wait. As you approach the address, Rabia gave you a heavy hand falls on your shoulder. What's your business here? Then Forcer grips your shoulder, giving a hint of the strength her implants give her. As you turn, you see the same subsidiary eyes as Rabia and Toshiro, glinting like mirrors on their cheeks. Gia, please, the sleeper is here by my invitation. At Rabia's command, the hand immediately loosens, and the apologetic look replaces a scowl on Gia's face. Why are you splitting me up into pieces, Chad? Are you trying to sacrifice me to someone? Why am I in chunks? Rabia waves her away. Don't you worry, I appreciate your protective instincts. She smiles at the enforcer. How about you head to the tambour? They have a delivery coming and they'll need some help with lifting. Gia nods and walks away. You do know that all my parts are connected to one body, right? You can't all have them. This chat is interesting. They are. So sleeper, you came. I'm glad. Didn't feel like an offer. Sorry for that. She smiles a tight smile. You have to understand. Finding you there in Sabine's unit, I wasn't sure where we stood. There are more than a few people on the station who'd rather I was dead. I had to be sure you weren't one of them. Not yet. Oh, we have a new top clipper. I'm excited to see it. She laughs. I like your sense of humor. But let me ask you a serious question for a moment. Rabia begins walking and gesturing for you to walk with her. What's wrong? What's wrong, Hoshi? You okay? Call dibs on his arm. Oh, it's fine. I believe in you. Bea begins walking and gesturing for you to walk with her. She takes you down a staircase into the bustling walkways to the low end. What do you know about Yatagan? Nothing. Come on, sleeper, humor me. I know we have a reputation. People with carts push past, moving crates of supplies around the thin and winding passage. Reputation is one that implies a threat. Is that fair to say? We are framed as aggressors, parasites, criminals. Thank you. I had to do some of the, getting the model to be more flowy and fixed with me, but it is a mass-produced model. I just did customization on it. Is it? I'll have to check it out later, Hoshi. I have his catnip. Nikio, can I have his catnip? How would you give it to me? She gestures around at the people in the passageway. But when was the last time you saw lawmakers in the eye? A policeman. Who makes the law here? Erland did. Indeed, you understand the history then. Is good. But Erland is a long dead sleeper, and his rules were little more than Optimist Manifesto. They has changed so much since then. Woof woof. I haven't stretched all day today, and thank you for the hydrate. They're just excited to see you, Hoshi. I don't mind a little excitement. If you had spent your time in the low end, maybe your opinion on us would be different. This is our place, our people. The low end was empty in Erland's time. They didn't need to house thousands, and keeping the yard and rotund was safe was work enough. No, the low end was reclaimed later, when the refugees started arriving. I do have redeems. If there's something specific you want me to say, you can redeem that. Rabia meets your eye. The collapse didn't just happen here on the station. When Solheim collapsed, the entire system felt it. Colonies were abandoned. The moons of Ember and Cinder suddenly gained independence overnight. Some took advantage. Some tried to hold it together. Some fled. Really? Well, I'm glad they got to meet me now. The Eye became a refuge, and Erland, to his credit, extended an open hand to everyone. But many within his organization disagreed, and those new arrivals weren't as simple to corral as they hoped. Rabia leads you through a small market hall, busy with small stalls and trades. Sophie, it has been requested that I call you a bad girl. Do you consent to that? If you consent, I'll happily call you that. And now I wait for Sophie's response. Nikio, I doubt that. Sophie, sweetie. I'll call you both. First off, Sophie. Bad girl, Sophie. Such a bad girl. And the other? You want to be called a good girl, Sophie. Then earn it. There you go. Erland's union was made of workers, administrators, people who were malleable and already organized into hierarchies and networks. The refugees came from different factions and families, were scared, injured, and desperate. Conflict was inevitable. Yanagan is a child of that conflict, a child born out of the need for us to stand up and claim our future. To provide security, strength. People call us a gang, but we're a community. I take my position as lieutenant seriously, and from my birth I have worked to earn it. Rabia catches herself before she raises her voice any further. And you both walk in silence. For a while, among the smells and textures of the low end, you start to wonder if this place could be your home too. Where do I come into this? Rabia smiles to herself and thinks for a moment before she responds. I believe that you understand the importance of a refuge, so I also believe that you wish to keep this place safe. She exhales quietly. For this reason, I'd like you to trust me. I do not know what Sabine told you about us, but I imagine it was not good. I'll be honest with you, Sleeper. I was never comfortable with having Sabine as part of the Yatagan. An ex-corporate employee, it goes against her nature. But their deal was with Yannick. I kept my distance, made sure Sabine had their surgery, kept it supplied. This game is Citizen Sleeper. You sold your body to a corporation, and you're now left with a robot body. You tried to leave the corporation, but your body's falling apart. And you escaped onto this station that is barely being kept together. And so you're trying to find a place, trying to survive, and, trying to exist. Meanwhile, we're being hunted, and there's all sorts of interesting things we're finding. Be honest with you, Sleeper. I was never comfortable with having Sabine as part of the Agon. An ex-corporate employee, it goes against her nature. But the deal with Yannick, and I kept my distance. Oh, you read that. But I cannot allow people to go back on their promises they've made us. Yatagan has not lasted this long because of its charity. We offer and ask for support. Any betrayal will be treated as an attack. Many of the IR, Sleeper, I'm sorry, but we must ask that our debts are paid in full. Sabine found something. Please, I don't want to hear their accusations. They only wanted to escape their debt. They would have said anything, but where are they now to stand behind their claims? I'll find them, as will we. Realize Rabia has led you in a loop. Together you both come back up the staircase to the walkway where you met. You're free to go, Sleeper. I've said what I wish to say. She looks out through the window of the walkway. I protect this place with my life, as it has protected me. I want to make that clear. She turns back. However, if you too wish to come under its protection, I can help you. Return here if you wish, and there will be tests for you to complete. You'll be able to see Yatagan, to see the low end with your own eyes, not as others frame us. As for Sabine, I will not ask you to betray her, but if they contact you again, consider motivations carefully. With that, Rabia leaves, slipping back into her office. While you stare out at the countless units, each home, each with a story, that make up the low end. Ah, lovely, 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 lovely. And can we get this going? Sweet. Alright, we're gonna do one more thing, chat. I'm hoping this goes well. Oof. You miss me? Ethan smiles a ragged smile. No, you look at him, he's paler than usual. Hunched, he's sporting a black eye and more than a few cycles of beard growth. It's no way to greet an old friend. Friend? While he pauses, calling, he smiles weakly. This is big, real big stuff about you. He seems more jittery than usual, on edge. You remember how the SNR canceled the contract? The contract I was going to collect? I remember. Well, I'm guessing you're pretty happy about that shit. Overjoyed. Me, I lost everything. But let's not worry about that. He smiles sarcastically. Thank you for the follow box you're at. Mwah. Behave yourself, Sophie. I was just glad to be done with it. Oh, the feeling was mutual, except, Ethan leaves a dramatic pause. What if old SNR gave the bounty to somebody else? Somebody who's even more of a shithead than yours truly. He smiles darkly. What a disaster that would be. Bye. Where are you going? That's the question, isn't it? Ethan fishes around in his pocket. Oh, you have fun. I've been speaking to some friends, you see, some colleagues, about what went down, and it turns out SNR canceled all their bounty contracts, the whole lot. Seems they brought someone in-house, some guy who did so well in his last job, that they offered him, a last contract that they got offered a job. He leans in. Apparently he made a hit on a ship called Winter Wonderland or something. It was smuggling sleepers out from under SNR's big corporate nose. He killed the crew and blew the ship. Ethan whistles. They called him Hemwick or Maywick or something. He gave up looking for the paper. I forgot. That's it. He looks at you hard. So you do know about all this. He pats you on the shoulder. I'll be very happy to hear what I'm about to offer you. Ethan runs his hand through his greasy hair. Given this new information I've brought to light, it seems that you're in need of protection. I meanwhile am in need of assistance in kind. It turns out I upset some people at Compressor last time we were there. The owners, and they say they'll space me unless I work off the debt. Seems they are that kind of businessman. I'd pay them out. He shrugs and turns his jacket pocket inside out in a mime of poverty. He looks pitiful, even more so for his clownish acting. Then work it off. You should be glad. The anger rises in him now. Praise. Oh, Anya. Anya, you are so very, very wonderful, and I do really appreciate you so very, very much. It has been lovely having you here as a member of my community. Someone so adorable and kind as you. You make the space better just by being in it. And as long as you stay as incredible as you are here everywhere else, I know the world will thank you just like I want to thank you. My lovely, lovely Anya. You've got this. Do your best and make me proud, okay? Thank you so much, Anya, for being here. And thank you for the redeem. Of course. Ethan rubs his temple. I'm sorry, he says. I'm sorry for being a shit and trying to kill you and whacking that thick skull of yours. He sighs. You think I want to go up against this guy, but us, he jabs a finger between the two of us. We don't have a choice, so you can keep me from getting killed and I'll do the same for you. We can help each other, a straight 50-50 deal. He looks at you. I'm not asking for a favor. I'll think about it. Ethan nods. I'm at the compressor every cycle, working. Just think about Maywick. Think about the cold-eyed SNR shit on his way here from the core systems. That should give you motivation you need. Ethan swaggers off down the corridor, throwing his jacket over his shoulder. Can't wait to be working with you, he shouts. All right, lovelies. All right, we ran a little bit long today, about an extra 20 minutes. So it's time for us to find someone to raid out into. Let's see what we have. Oh, what are they doing today? We're gonna see if we can find somebody to hop into. Send you over somewhere nice and relaxing. But I hope you've all had a lovely time today. Let's see. There's me. We'll raid into Yuki here, okay? Alright, you lovely, lovely people, go say hi to Yuki. I'll be back here tomorrow. I'll be back here later this afternoon, 4 p.m. MST. we're going to be playing some games. So for now, we're going to say... we're going to do a little good morning. Let's copy that raid message. Say good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Y'all behave yourselves. Have a good day. Have a lovely, lovely day. And I will be back 4 p.m. MST. Mwah. Mwah, 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 mwah. Bye for now.